want to thank you three so much for agreeing, first of all, to have this conversation with me about sexual assault and just everything that surrounds it. It's not a comfortable conversation that, people like to have. They kind of push away from it, so that's why I thank you a lot. And so I just want to go ahead and introduce yourself. Jeannie, you can go ahead and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Jeannie, and I'm a sound and graphic designer and the founder of the Hearthstone Project.
Cool.
Hi, I'm Deja Jones. I really just am super active at my university, involved in my SGA, and I push a lot of platforms as far as Girls' Night and sexual assault awareness.
Hello, my name is Shanti Ringfield. I am a model and I'm a boutique owner.
Before we even get into why I invited you guys here in the first place is because the industries and the leadership positions that you have and the way that sexual assault has a space plays a part in those spaces. I wanted to just first touch on how we deal with sexual assault, just being women in general, the microaggressions that are within society, you know what I mean, just going to the gas station or whatever, how have y'all experienced that yourselves, and how do you see it in everyday just being a woman?
I'll start by saying every time I leave the house I have to mentally prepare myself to experience coexisting with men. That's really what started just the thought and the process of me getting self-defense for myself. I definitely feel a lot better now that I have it, but it's still something that is not a problem solver. Going to the gas station. Just the other day I was driving, but it was 5 in the morning, and I was at the gas station just kind of by myself, but I just was so scared, even though I had protection.
Right.
I only got up to $8, and I was just fuck it, I'm good, I just want to leave,
I'm telling
and
you.
it was just really traumatizing. It was just so sad. Every time I go to the gas station, it's just
I see a lot, the Walmart that's by Kennesaw's campus. A lot of people talk about experiences at that Walmart, so I always get super nervous. I never go there by myself.
Yeah.
Even if it's in the morning, because I feel a lot of times we have the stigma of being out at night by yourself. But even in the day, I still have the same nerves. Maybe not the same, because it's definitely scarier at night. But even in the daytime, I'm because you can go. I go to the gas station during the day, and there'll be a man at the pump in front of me just staring the entire time. And it, the small scale things lead up into bigger reactions and bigger physical responses as far as how your body responds to it and stuff. Literally just being stared at, somebody following you with their eyes, stuff like that builds up into a larger feeling, at least for me.
Yeah.
It's very nerve-wracking and annoying, to say the least. The gas station, I feel guys should get the hint by now.
Right.
We hate that. Stop.
They
Stop.
never do, especially when it comes around to this conversation. One of the other women that I wanted to invite to talk here, she didn't exactly feel comfortable talking because she didn't feel like she has had much experience when it comes to sexual assault, or we had a discussion about it before, what people think sexual assault is, but it's really all the small stuff too. So when it comes to that conversation, how is it with y'all having conversations with other people? How do they respond? Do they?
Well, I feel a lot of people don't know what sexual assault really is, because I feel I just got more clarity on sexual assault this year. So it's when we talk about it, I know a lot of women will say, oh, I've never been sexually assaulted, or guys will say I've never done that to anybody, but it's most of the time we don't really have a clear understanding of what it is. So even with that girl, I'm not saying that she has been, but it's a great chance that she has been, and she just didn't know that she was being sexually assaulted.
Exactly. Or just harassed, or everything that's underneath it. So now that we've talked about what is sexual assault, what is your definition of what it is?
To me, it's harassment.
Yeah.
So any form of harassment at all, so that means basically you're opposing and the person keeps pushing. That's sexual assault in my opinion. So it can be catcalling, it can be can just be verbal.
Right.
It's complicated because, like, initially my thoughts are like anything that makes someone uncomfortable. But I feel like even in situations where someone might be comfortable with the way that you approach them, like certain things, you can still classify like the way that you approach someone or the way that you did it, despite their response to it, as like harassment. You know,
Yeah.
like the way that, for instance, you know, you might have an instance where someone is staring at somebody or approaching somebody at a gas station, and how I may have responded to it, you would then classify it as harassment, but for someone else that might, you know, have interest in the individual or whatever. But nonetheless, the action was still the same, if that makes sense. Y'all see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So, I feel like it's so complicated to really define it because there's so many elements. There's so many layers to it.
Yeah.
So many.
And so if there are so many layers, for the people who like watch or like people who talk about it in general, how are they supposed to move? Like when they ask those questions, well, if sexual assault is so general, then am I just supposed to stay away from everybody? You know what I mean? Like, how do people feel that they're like making people comfortable? Like, I mean, personally, I don't think it's that difficult. Like, I think you just have to really like dig down deep and see what your, you know, relationship with sex is and relationship with intimacy is in general. But there is like such a fine line sometimes.
Yeah. I think that anything like probably, I think energy speaks a lot too, or that's like transferred on like your intentions, and like I can still feel that too, or just like the tone of like how you approach someone, just being sexually charged, disregarding consent, or just being unaware of like a woman's comfortability because you have a different motive in mind, just can be like all classified under like assault. Or just the root of like that mindset will just kind of inevitably like lead to you doing something to make a woman uncomfortable.
Yeah, I always say the biggest thing is like learning people's body language. Like body language tells so much, like before you even speak. And so,
and just awareness, like you have to be aware of the environment that you're in. Like, you know, if I'm at a party and it's really dark, I'm by myself, you don't see anybody with me, you approach the situation differently than you would approach it if we in a well-lit area.
Right.
I have like my girls with me. The way that you are aware of not only body language, not only the environment, but just, you know, every aspect of the interaction that you're having with somebody. Like, I feel like it really goes down to core values of like how much are you critically thinking about interacting with someone, which
how you're coming off.
yeah. And I mean, I don't know if it's because maybe social media has played a role in this, of like the way that we interact. We've kind of dulled down like thinking in a complex way about it, so where we just interact with people without it, like thoughtlessly, you know.
Yeah.
But I feel like we have to add thought and critical thinking back into interacting with people. So
I think also a big thing is communication, because when we talk about sexual assault, normally we talk about it with a stranger or a guy at the gas station, but a lot of times it can be somebody
That's
you know.
what happens most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time it's somebody you know. It can be a friend, it can be somebody you're dating, it can be your boyfriend, it can be your fiance. Like, it doesn't just have to be a stranger. So I think too, like, as women, knowing what you want, knowing what makes you comfortable, knowing what makes you uncomfortable, and setting boundaries. Because I know that I have not always set boundaries for myself. And not that it was my fault, because it definitely wasn't my fault. But when you set boundaries and communicate, and when people do things that cross those boundaries, you know to cut them off so you won't even have to deal with certain things.
Yeah. But when did you start building those boundaries? Because like you said, like I haven't always had those boundaries for myself. But that's because I never knew I really had to like have it.
You didn't really know that you even needed those
Because you
boundaries.
expect for people to just know how to do right. And that's why I always expect it from people. Right.
Especially people who know you.
Exactly.
Right.
Especially like you said, people like your boyfriend, people that are like just super close to you as friends or whatever. So how did you start to build those boundaries for yourself? Like before
it happened?
Yes, before it happens. For those people that we're talking about who hasn't experienced it already, how do you become more conscious of it now?
I definitely think one of the things, at least for me, was like the way that as a society we approach the conversation of like sexual assault and sexual harassment as it relates to women. Like when we started being more serious about it and having more conversations about it, I changed the way that I responded to certain things. Because like there was a time when I didn't have those boundaries set. In my mind, I knew and I felt that however someone was interacting with me made me uncomfortable. But I feel like, like we've created a culture where women kind of like are expected to let things happen, not really like say no, like stop, this is making me uncomfortable. So I feel like to an extent in the earlier stages of my life, like I just would shrug things off and be like, I'm just gonna, or maybe next time I'll approach that in a different way, or I'm gonna just act like that didn't happen. I feel like that's a lot. For me, it was like, I'm gonna act like that didn't just happen, because versus being like, no, you really just made me uncomfortable. Because even if it doesn't relate to sexual assault or sexual harassment, nobody really kind of want to be the person that changes the mood, or you don't want to, affect your relationship with your friends and stuff like that by being like, you just made me uncomfortable by doing that. But we have to create that culture for where women can feel comfortable being like, no, you just made me feel uncomfortable, without it being like I'm trying to attack you as an individual. I'm attacking the way that you just approached me and the way that you've made me feel now. So it's big about the people around me, for me at least. So.
And that's true. I think that's what's really important. I realized that once it happened to me, of course, like being uncomfortable in certain situations, but not wanting to talk about it. Like even if it's not, and I've said this before, people always relate like sexual assault with the rape, or like right before it, or whatever it might be. But it's just being uncomfortable in certain like situations. And like I've been in situations like that where I'm just like, okay, I'm uncomfortable and this is making me mad. But let me just do what I can to get out of the situations without having to speak up about it. And then I hold on to it for months, and it's someone that I'm close to, but not wanting to talk to them about it because, am I making it too big of a deal? Or is it going to make him mad, the fact that like I thought that way or whatever? And so when I did eventually speak up to him about it, he did apologize or whatever, and he did like say, that's not the way he meant to come off or whatever. But me thinking about it for myself, I'm like, I wish I would have just spoken up about it in general, and then in me speaking up about it, it gives me some relief, and then it also points out to him like, you have to get your act together. You have to realize like when you are making someone uncomfortable, and so that's super important.
That also speaks to like how we've invalidated, where we've seen people's situations get invalidated so much that it's like you can get scared to even say, you just made me uncomfortable, because we've seen people say things like that and people be like, that's not how it happened, or so even down to that, like we have to start validating the experiences around us, because the people watching may be going through the same experiences or may go through those same experiences. And when you're constantly seeing people downplay it or be like, that's not exactly how it happened, or that's not the exact story, then it's going to change the way that I respond to it when it happens to me. So like the fact that you were like, I don't want to make him feel uncomfortable, I don't want to make him think, or I don't want to seem like I'm making it more than it was, really speaks to how we've responded to instances like that before, for it to be that way.
And that's a good transition into what I also want to speak about is, we talked about it, generally as women, but like more specifically when it comes to like Black women, and not being heard in not just this area, but in lots of different areas. But, two situations that we've like come across, like that has been talked about is, obviously Meg and Tori, and then Keke Palmer and Trey Songz. And so like in both of those situations, there's always this back and forth. Like there's never like this just.
It's always questionable.
It's always
like, well,
questionable.
what did you do to make him shoot you?
Like, why was that? Were you mad? Like, were you too aggressive? Because why would he just shoot you out of nowhere? You know what I mean? And so when it comes down to that, it's like Well, first of all, I want to know what y'all thought about those situations. Like, y'all tell me what you thought about those situations.
One, I think I was gonna say earlier, just talking about like being invalidated and how like the words like being called aggressive or like sensitive or over emotional or just a bitch is just how those words are like used to just harm and like silence us even when we're just not even doing anything or saying something that's actually valid. Yeah, the angry black woman just narrative is just so played out and harmful. As far as Megan and Tory, I mean, I didn't have to think twice about giving him the benefit of the doubt. It wasn't.
Is that enough?
I mean, it's like I just want to engage in that conversation.
Like, it's really like, the thing about it is, I would rather you just not have a side at all, rather than for you to like blatantly like defend like the person who's allegedly guilty. Like,
And disrespect.
Exactly.
It's
That's
just really
disrespectful.
weird. It's so disrespectful to like the victim, like to just. That's so weird. Like, why would you do that?
Right.
And people don't understand it become personal. Like,
it gets very personal. I've argued with several people about the
I-
situation, and it's for the simple fact that if I shoot you in the foot and you didn't shoot me, you didn't touch me, like nothing happened to you, then it's wrong. Like, it doesn't matter what she said. It don't matter if she cheated on him. It don't matter if she called him a bitch. It don't matter if they was arguing. It don't matter. He shot her in the foot. What else is there to know? I'm like, what else is there to know? Somebody shoot you in the foot. It's wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly.
especially given, and I know there's a lot of tweets on the internet like this, but like we had an outpour of support for Breonna Taylor, and then the next day,
That's the
everybody
day.
was talking about Tory Lanez.
The most
Propaganda.
That's where I'm saying like it gets personal, because it's like it becomes like I feel like you talking about me, like I feel hit now.
Like, I just don't, but like that's what really like struck me, because first of all, the Breonna Taylor stuff had me in a mood like all day. The night before, all day after, I was hurt. And to think that there are men within the industry, or just men in general, black men especially, that say that they're allies, to say that this man, Tory, was close to Megan for months, and then to use this situation to, first of all, use it as financial gain, and then to release it at the worst possible time.
And then to try to say she had past history of assault or something. I'm like, what does that have to do with this situation?
Like, talking about, I heard, because I didn't listen to it, but
I didn't either.
talking about like, apparently he mentioned her mom or whatever, and I don't know the specifics of it, you know, but it's just like, I mean, I understand, like, when it comes to, like, you know, like, the rap industry or whatever, they talk about their personal lives, like, you put everything out there, but it just completely blew my mind, like, the lack of sensitivity that he had with the situation.
It's the audacity.
The lack of sensitivity, bro. It's like, imagine, and it's really sad that you always have to use this metaphor for men to like understand, like, but like if this was like your sister and the alleged person that murdered your sister dropped an album describing what happened in the case right after, would you tweet, oh, this low-key flames though, like this is low-key fire, or y'all, like, he got some points though, like, would you say that? Like, you wouldn't
It's
say
just
that.
so freaking weird. Like, I saw on someone's story, they were, you know, having people DM them about the situation, and some girl said, well, you know, the thing is about it is like,
I know exactly whose story you're talking about. He just close to your thoughts. He just close.
it's already over with, but the thing is like, she was saying that when it comes down to it, there are two sides of a story, which I do agree with. When Toy first said that he was gonna, you know, get ready, I'm gonna talk about it, everybody thought it was gonna be live. At first I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna watch it. But then I was like, you know what, I will watch it, because it's alive. You know, everyone has the opportunity to watch it, and I want to hear what he's going to say. How is he gonna approach this? But then when he took it a whole nother way, I was like, no. And so she was saying that in the DMs, that like people are so stuck on just choosing the side that they first hear, and they're not they're not ready to hear both sides because there's always two sides.
Right.
And she was like, you know, and it hits. Like, the songs hit.
But oftentimes the people that say that are the people that are taking the side of the assaulter. Like,
right.
they use that narrative frequently to make them feel better about the fact that they're
right.
not siding with the survivor.
Right.
Like, that.
It's part of the culture of just, like, not believing women, one. Like, we can't say it's two sides to the story for every single rape case. Like, why do we need to do that? Like, of course there is, but, like, if we continue to do that, it's just a part of rape culture to not believe women.
Right.
And also, I feel like it's two sides of the story when somebody's not hurt and it's not violence. Regardless, yes, there are two sides to the story, but if somebody commits a violent act against somebody, that person is wrong. Yeah. So I'm like, yes, it's two sides to the story for sure. It's definitely a reason why he shot her, but that don't mean that he should have shot her.
Right.
So I'm like.
And then when it comes to,
So, like, as a black man, right, it kind of upsets me when other black men are so quick to be like, dang, they shot Trayvon Martin, and, like, the cops need to go to jail. But then when Tory shoots Meg, it's, well, I mean,
that's
like,
what I was.
and that's the exact same logic that racist people use against black people when they be like, well, I mean, we don't know what the cop did. Like, did he have a gun in the past? And then to your point, Shanti, when they're saying, well, she had a past of being aggressive, that's the exact same logic that they use against us, saying, well, he was jaywalking like 2 years ago, or he smoked weed 2 years ago.
Right.
But yeah, just want to make that point.
I was literally just about to say that, because I was like, imagine had there been responses on Twitter. And I hate that we even have to keep creating analogies. Like, I'm not, but imagine we saw what happened to George Floyd, and people are on Twitter like, well, there's two sides to the story. Like, we need to hear what the cop. I can't fathom that. And even just like what he was saying, like, I don't know if y'all see what I do on Twitter, but when all this was happening with Tory Lanez and Breonna Taylor, there was, like, this guy that was getting mad because he was like, black women, y'all have to stop attacking black men and tearing us. And I'm literally like,
I seen that.
Black men that genuinely are allies of black women are not upset when black women ask more of black men. Like, and if you are surrounded by a black man that feels that way, get out.
Right.
Like, get out, because that individual is not truly your ally. Or you need to teach him how to be, because black men who truly see what black women are going through and want to help are just as mad at the black men who aren't being there.
And I saw that tweet, and I saw the quote, someone quoted it, and how they were saying, basically she was saying that she understands, but let's not always, like, bash our men.
That video she made. Was it a video?
No, she quoted your tweet, and she was like, let's not always bash our black men and whatnot.
And
you
said, no.
Wait, what did the tweet say?
I just was like, black men, y'all know you have to actually protect black women to protect black women. I think that's what I said. Something around the lines
like
of that.
Yeah, and then she said, well, let's not always trash on our black men.
But that's not even
You
trashing.
trash. You said do more.
Like this, and then you're like, to you.
Like,
yes, and so, and then I was at work, so I couldn't go fully into it, but even I was thinking, I was going to break it down to her and saying, like, it's not, like, first of all, no one's trashing, that's not how I was going to say it, but I was really just going to say, like, when you really get down to it, we're talking to the people who don't understand that.
Right.
Like, there are truly people who don't understand that, like, and it's so weird because we're in a bubble and we surround ourselves with people who do understand it, and then when you meet someone outside, you're like, wow, there's really still, like, hella people out here who are completely oblivious to what's going on. Like, there's completely oblivious to the things that we're talking about, the conversations that we're trying to have. I have a coworker, and he said something about dark-skinned women. I was showing him some of my sisters because we're so fun, and I came across one of my darker skinned line sisters, and beautiful. All of my sisters are beautiful, and not just in that way of, oh, all of them are so beautiful. Like, we're really fine. And he was like, oh, you know, yeah, she's pretty, but, you know, if I was to date a dark-skinned woman, she would have to be, you know, just really pretty. And I was just like, I had to take a step back, and I was looking at him like this, and he was like, what's wrong? And I was just like,
just dumb.
It's so offensive. It's so offensive. And I look at people sideways. I look at women sideways who are lighter skinned and don't think that's offensive. Because even when darker skinned guys will say stuff like, oh, like, we'll have kids your color or anything about color, it's like, that's offensive because at the end of the day, we're all black.
Right.
And if we do have a child that's darker skinned, then what?
Right.
Like, now what?
Yeah.
Now I gotta work backwards with you?
Definitely be looking at light skinned women who don't like take that opportunity to
Right.
defend
To educate.
darker skinned women sideways.
it's just
Because
You're trash.
It's just distasteful.
But
It's
that's what I ended up
disgusting.
telling him. I told him, because he really didn't understand. I was like, when you like a woman, when you are attracted to someone, obviously you're going to be attracted to them. Like, why do you feel like when it comes to dark-skinned women that you have to say, oh, if she's really pretty? Like, anyone that you date, you're going to want to be attracted to them. They have to be really pretty in your eyes. So I had to tell him, I was like, you have to understand the things that society has taught us to put all of these stereotypes on black women or darker skinned women, that they're not prettier or they're more aggressive or they're this, they're that.
They have to
like,
look a
you
certain
have to
way to be pretty. They gotta be all oiled up with bikinis on to be pretty.
This is the stuff that I be thinking about when we be like, black men are the weakest link. I be like, y'all have to see. Like, y'all have to be looking like, damn, we really are the weakest link. Because that's ignorant. Like, that's just ignorant. Ugh.